Good morning, afternoon to others, and thank you for joining today's webinar. It is a warm welcome to you all, to those who are joining us from Zimbabwe, from Africa, and from beyond. And as you all know, today we are commemorating International Mother Earth Day. So we are gathered here for a very important conversation, which is understanding ecocide and the global movement for its criminalization. So my name is Tafadwa Mbududu, and I'll be the webinar's moderator today. Without wasting much of your time, I will just introduce in short the speakers who are going to speak in this webinar. We have Nicole Del Porter, who is someone who is very passionate about climate change and the environment. Nicole Del Porter normally focuses mostly on climate issues, and he is also well familiar and well conversant with the UN systems. He's also a core team member for Youth Ecocide Law. We also have Ignatius Kudakwashe Mayeresa, who is the founder and executive director for Earth Coexistence Initiative, which is a non-profit organization operating in Zimbabwe. He is an environmental lawyer and a climate lawyer as well. We also have Guilherme Kalonji, who will also be speaking, who is a biologist by profession, a climate activist. He's from Congo, Kinshasa. And he is also the African coordinator for Stop Ecocide International. Lastly, we have Chiedza Harry, who is the founder and CEO of Ubuntu Alliance, and she's also active in the climate spaces and environmental spaces. She has spoken in numerous forums and events as well. So these are the speakers who are going to speak today.
Thank you, Tafadwa, for starting off the session. And good morning, everyone, and good afternoon from wherever you are. And I would want to thank you for sacrificing your time from your busy schedule to join this timely discussion. And on behalf of the Earth Coexistence Initiative, it is, I think, my great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar, which I believe is a platform for raising awareness. It's a platform for us to share insights. It's a platform for us to all learn from each other and also learn from other jurisdictions in relation to what ecocide law entails, what ecocide is really about. So thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to the fruitful discussions, to the insights that we are going to be sharing. Thank you, and back to you, Tafadwa.
Since we are a little bit behind time, without wasting much of your time, as I will now give the floor to Nicole Del Porter so that he speaks to us. So, as you all know, that ecocide, we are pushing ecocide, or there's a global momentum to push ecocide to become the fifth international crime, alongside genocide, war crimes, and all. So Nicole, like I said before, is a climate policy and environmental law advocacy. So you will speak to us, especially on the global efforts to recognize ecocide as an international law. So Nicole, over to you so that you speak to the people.
Thank you so much, Tafadwa, and thank you, Ignatius, for the introduction. And good morning, everyone. And also thank you to the Earth Coexistence Initiative team for convening us today alongside Youth for Ecocide Law. And most importantly, happy International Mother Earth Day. Today is the 22nd of April. The United Nations celebrates Mother Earth Day. And every year, Youth for Ecocide Law organizes a set of initiatives like we did this year. Webinars, actions, and events to promote Earth Day and our work in that sense. So today it's great to celebrate with Zimbabwean youth and legal experts and civil society leaders who are already shaping the future of environmental justice in their country. So yeah, I am speaking on behalf of Youth for Ecocide Law. I can give you a bit of context on what we do. Youth for Ecocide Law unites advocates below 35 years of age across more than 40 countries in 6 continents. And we work under the umbrella of Stop Ecocide International to translate current legal debates into campaigns, webinars, and tools that young people can use in their own contexts. And we also partner with many youth networks worldwide and youth organizations like the Earth Coexistence Initiative. And today we will set the tone for, hopefully, for a Zimbabwean movement for Ecocide Law. There's already been a parliamentary petition that has been filed on Ecocide, and speakers later on will further discuss about it. And this really shows what youth leadership and the vision of young people can achieve in Zimbabwe, in Africa, and worldwide. So our role today is to connect that national momentum to the global network of really unprecedented legal progress, and to give you some more tools and ideas to carry the work forward. So I will start by giving a definition of ecocide, which has been defined by an independent expert panel convened by the Stop Ecocide Foundation in 2021. And the definition is: ecocide is any unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood or severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. And this really means, this really is relevant because of 4 reasons mostly. So the fact that the harm is identified as severe. So the harm, environmental harm, must involve serious adverse changes to any element of the environment. The fact that harm should be widespread or long-term. So it must extend beyond the limited area or persist over time, or be irreversible. The knowledge and the recklessness of the fact that the law targets decision makers who know the risk and proceed anyway. So that is knowledge and recklessness of an environmental hazard, widespread. And also the fact that acts committed with reckless disregard for damage, clearly excessive in relation to the social or economic benefits. So it's sort of assessment of the trade-offs of whether a decision was taken and the impact this decision has taken on the environment in terms of widespread, long-term, severe damage. And in general, Ecocide Law targets the directing minds behind environmental destruction, such as corporate executives, state officials, or those who decide at the top. And it is not designated to punish ordinary citizens or end users. For that, there is other types of legal tools. Yeah, so why do we need it? The reason why we need that is that the current legal framework fails nature mostly. There's environmental fines, but they're treated as a cost of doing business. And also civil penalties do not deter decision makers who destroy ecosystems at scale. And really the gap between what the law prohibits and what actually happens on the ground just keeps widening. So Ecocide Law closes that gap. It establishes a criminal taboo around mass environmental destruction, comparable to the taboo that genocide and war crimes established in the 20th century. And for that, the International Criminal Court was created, the same court that Stop Ecocide International and Youth for Ecocide Law and many, many other partners, government partners, NGOs, state actors are trying to fill by adopting ecocide as a 5th crime under the ICC, the International Criminal Court. And so basically the criminal accountability will change the cost-benefit calculation before destruction occurs. not after. So as I said earlier, right now there's sort of a criminal taboo, and the fact that some decision makers they see the fines caused by their lack of action or environmental hazard as a cost of doing business. So by creating a criminal procedure at the international level, we would stop this type of logic, this type of business as usual. And there has been many developments so far within the movement. So since 2024, in September, when the countries of Vanuatu, Fiji, and Samoa have formally submitted a proposed amendment to Article 5 of the Rome Statute, the statute which founds the International Criminal Court. They have filed a proposal to add ecocide as the fifth international crime. And the ICC, the International Criminal Court Assembly of States Parties Working Group on Amendments, is currently considering it. And there has been other countries, also in Africa, who have endorsed the proposal, notably the Democratic Republic of Congo. And today we have also Guillaume today speaking with us from the country and can tell us more about it. They have also endorsed the proposal. And so there's a global movement really, which is moving forward a crucial pathway also for broader engagement of many other countries in this regard. Also in the European Union and the European institutions, there has been major advancements with regards to ecocide. So in 2025, in May, the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe has adopted the Convention on the Protection of Environment through Criminal Law by consensus. So all members of the Council of Europe have agreed on basically referencing ecocide and calling on signatory states to prosecute acts tantamount to ecocide. And once 10 ratifications will be pushed forward, then this convention will bring it into force. And in the European Union, there has been a revision of the European Crime Directive of 2024, which now requires all 27 members of the European Union to incorporate provisions on conduct comparable to ecocide into national law by May 2026. So that will be next month. This means that by next month, all states have to incorporate provisions in their national laws, which are related to the widespread severe destruction of the environment. And if they don't do so, then European Union provides a mechanism for following up and eventually fining the states which do not comply with the national regulations. So this is a strong, strict rule that the European Union is pushing forward, and it really creates a content-wide criminal baseline for severe environmental harm, which ideally will also lead by example to provide the case for other countries and other regional organizations to include ecocide in their provisions. And again, in Africa as well, there's been last year the 20th African Ministerial Conference on the Environment that was in Nairobi, Kenya. And environment ministers from across Africa have formally included ecocide in the continent's environmental strategy and priorities for 2025 to 2026. And then the Republic of Congo and Burundi also joined the DRC in declaring the support for the recognition of ecocide at the international level. So as I said earlier, there is many countries around the world that are seeing the importance and the momentum around ecocide, and they are pushing forward and making this cause their own cause as well. Like many other countries, also in domestic legislature and national legislature have adopted legislation on ecocide. For instance, Brazil, Mexico, the Netherlands, Peru, Italy, Scotland, Belgium, Argentina, French Polynesia, and even Scotland, which has introduced an Ecocide bill in 2025, which proposes up to 20 years imprisonment for individuals and unlimited fines for corporations. And lastly, why is this movement growing so fast, and which is the legal rationale around these considerations? Well, there are several sources, there are several tools, but mostly two landmark cases have been adopted in 2025. One by the Inter-American Court on Human Rights and one by the International Court of Justice, which issued two landmark advisory opinions shaping the legal landscape. Notably, the ICJ has confirmed that states carry binding international obligations to prevent and redress climate and environmental harm, and that states bear responsibility when they fail to regulate corporations that cause such damage. And the Inter-American Court on Human Rights has affirmed that the obligation to prevent irreversible environmental harm constitutes a peremptory rule of international law, which is also jus cogens norm of international law. And this movement has grown so rapidly, and these landmark decisions have been adopted by consensus from the United Nations General Assembly. I mean, the request to the International Court of Justice has a consensus, also and especially thanks to the work of many young people globally. For instance, the advisory opinion was started by a group of students from the Pacific Island students fighting for climate change, and also by our partners, World Youth for Climate Justice, which have started a global discussion and then eventually a global lobbying and advocacy initiative at the UN and across national governments to request clarity over responsibility of states regarding climate change. So, in conclusion, Youth for Ecocide Law is contributing to all these processes, and we do so by building capacity, training young advocates in ecocide law, and we do so through webinars like this, through the use of our toolkits, and by sharing resources on the latest developments on ecocide. We do advocacy at every level. We attend conferences, we attend the COPs and the United Nations Environmental Assemblies in Kenya, and other events like the ICC Assembly of States Parties. And we do so also while growing our network. We do also have Youth for Ecocide Law Africa. Guillaume today will be speaking. He is the coordinator of such, along with Debbie. And we are expanding to Latin America, Asia, Oceania. So we really request your help in also broadening the network in Zimbabwe, sharing your knowledge, your expertise, what you learned out of today's webinar and what you will learn throughout this event, in order to really shape the communities around you and shape information and discussions in your country regarding this very crucial topic, of which Zimbabwe is very much on top. So we really hope to have you on our side, and we will do our best to be on your side as well and to collaborate. And yeah, without further ado, I thank you very much for this opportunity, and I leave the floor back to Tafatswan.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for clearly unpacking that important foundation, so that we get to understand what Ecocide Law is all about and what Youth for Ecocide Law is doing internationally. Thank you so much for unpacking to us that. So right now, I will leave the floor to everyone who is on the webinar who has questions for Nicole before we jump to the next speaker. If we have questions, this is the time to questions, comments, then we move forward. Once again, thank you very much, Nicole, for such an important foundation. So now let's bring the discussion closer to home, focusing on Zimbabwe. So I will leave the floor to Ignatius Maeresa so that he speak on the environmental crimes, give a picture of the environmental crimes that are being done in Zimbabwe, and at the same time also touches on issues to do with the role that the youth has to play, especially here in Zimbabwe and internationally, in pushing Ecocide. So, Ignatius, I leave the floor to you.
Thank you very much, Nicole, for that insightful foundation that you gave us. So, first and foremost, I would love to acknowledge the fact that Zimbabwe, like many other countries globally, Zimbabwe is being affected by environmental crimes. But I would also love to acknowledge the role or the pertinent efforts that the government of Zimbabwe, the effort that they have been doing in terms of trying to make sure that they combat environmental crimes, in terms of trying to make sure that the ecosystems that we have are protected, and also in terms of pushing for different environmental justice issues, and also issues to do with environmental rights. So, Earth Coexistence Initiative, I think, in relation to environmental crimes, our role is just to complement the different efforts that are being done by firstly the government in terms of combating environmental crimes, and also the efforts that other players within the sector are also doing. So that is where we chip in, and we then also try to support in relation to that. And the other thing is that we also are trying to make sure that we push and we advocate and we lobby for comprehensive laws and policies that make sure that these environmental crimes are, at the end of the day, or ultimately deterred or are reduced, as it were. So I'll just try to give a brief overview in terms of the environmental crimes that we have in Zimbabwe. And one thing that I would want to reiterate to all of us is the fact that these crimes are not unique to Zimbabwe. I think globally we know that environmental crimes are serious issues, and they are affecting all countries globally. So we have different environmental crimes that are prevalent in Zimbabwe that cut across all the environmental sectors that we have, with a specific or particular focus on, for example, your natural resources. For example, we have forest resources in Zimbabwe. We also have crimes that are affecting our forest resources, and these crimes relate to, for example, your illegal cutting down of trees, illegal timber logging, illegal production of charcoal. And we know that forests are a very pertinent facet when it comes to our ecosystem. So this is, again, another type of environmental crime that we have in Zimbabwe, and that is pertinent. But again, I would also love to acknowledge the role of, particularly when it comes to forest crimes, the role that is being played by your Forestry Commission, Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Management Agency, Zimbabwe Republic Police through this Central Intelligence Division, Minerals, Flora and Fauna Unit, and also the ministry. I would love to commend their efforts in trying to come up with their efforts to mitigate and combat these forest crimes. Then we also move to issues with to do with your biodiversity, or in this case, issues to do with your wildlife. So we also have wildlife laws that are also affecting the country. And these wildlife laws, remember that when we are talking about wildlife, we are talking about both flora and fauna. So we have crimes that are affecting both the flora and the fauna. So we have people who are committing wildlife crimes, for example, issues to do with your illegal hunting, your poaching. Then this poaching then ends up feeding into different illegal wildlife trade syndicates that we have that are operating within the country and also within surrounding nations. Because when we talk about these kind of crimes, we need to also acknowledge the fact that most of these crimes that relate to natural resources are also transboundary crimes in nature. So because Zimbabwe shares borders with other countries, we end up we end up having a situation whereby, as a country, we have to deal with these illegal trafficking syndicates. So wildlife, not necessarily relating to the animals themselves, but we also have crimes that relate to the plants. So we have different plants that are protected here in Zimbabwe, but these are not very common, but we also have those kinds of crimes here in Zimbabwe. Then we go again, for example, we have crimes that relate to illegal sand poaching or illegal sand abstraction. So because of the fact that as a country we are a developing country, so people are building, we are trying to grow in terms of our infrastructure in Zimbabwe. So we have that serious problem of uncouth individuals that are abstracting sand illegally, and then they are damaging the environment, leaving the environment damaged and degraded as it were. But again, efforts are being made, and these efforts have to be commended as well. Then we go to issues to do with, we also have issues that specifically relate to issues to do with water. We have issues to do with the water pollution, how we have certain individuals or certain entities polluting our water sources. But the other thing that I have to also openly acknowledge is that we do have the laws and policies that try to combat all these crimes. But you know that with these criminal syndicates, with these criminal individuals, they always find a way to circumvent these laws and policies as it were. So from the issues to do with water, we also have issues to do with your air pollution, whereby we have different individuals, entities polluting our air. We also have crimes that also relates to illegal mining. We have a strong mining law, but again, we have people who then end up perpetrating illegal mining as it were. So, as I alluded to earlier, the crimes that in the environmental crimes that happen to Zimbabwe also relates to the environmental, economic, social, and cultural rights that we have as Zimbabweans, and that the youth also have. And also, we also remembering the fact that our constitution have we have rights that are enshrined within the constitution that also align with that also relate to these environmental crimes. We have environmental rights that are enshrined within the constitution. So when these environmental crimes are perpetrated, our rights then are also breached as it were. But the good thing is that all stakeholders and the government leading from the front have united, and we are trying as a country to make sure that these environmental crimes are dealt with decisively. And also Zimbabwe, I would also love to acknowledge this. We are also trying to reform our laws and policies so that they are in tandem with the contextual realities in terms of what is happening within the communities when it comes to these crimes, in terms of what is happening within the international circles or within other international jurisdictions that we have. But of course, we are trying to make sure that when we adopt these international best practices, we then also try to tailor make them so that they suit our own contextual realities and our own needs as a country. So I think in summary, those are the different kinds of environmental crimes that we have in Zimbabwe. So I think the major takeaway points that we have there is that we are really trying as a country to make sure that these crimes are combated and these crimes are solved. Yes, it's it. And in terms of the role that the role that we have as the youth, not only the youth in Zimbabwe, but youth globally. They usually say that we are the future of tomorrow, but I believe that we are the future leaders of tomorrow, but I believe that we are the leaders now. So we need to also make sure that we complement the various efforts that are being done by our elders, the efforts that are being done by the different authorities that have a mandate when it comes to protecting the environment. And I believe that youths, we are very passionate individuals. we are energetic, we are innovative. So we need to bring that innovativeness to the table. We need to bring that passion to the table to make sure that we come up with efforts that are comprehensive efforts that really then also support whatever initiatives or whatever interventions that are being done by the different government stakeholders. So our efforts are, and we can also support in terms of raising awareness, support like, for example, this webinar is just one of that intervention whereby, as a youth-led entity, as a youth group, ECI, we just decided, working with, of course, Top Ecocide International and Youth for Ecocide Law, to say let's raise awareness so that the youths back home, the youths in Zimbabwe, can also understand what ecocide entails, so that whatever efforts that we are going to do as the youths of Zimbabwe are going to be efforts that are informed by concrete evidence, efforts that are then informed by the actual knowledge and also the contextual realities of what is happening within other international jurisdictions and what the successes have been, what the pitfalls have been, so that when we develop our own intervention, that will then also bring home in terms of trying to push for the recognition of ecocide and ecocide law. This intervention will be a solid and a watertight intervention. So raising awareness, also pushing in terms of advocacy. Yes, I believe as youth we should also be in that position whereby we also come in and we support in terms of the different advocacy initiatives and interventions we can bring to the board. We can also we write, so the youth also have an opportunity in terms of writing. If we can write blogs, articles, research papers, and disseminate these products widely, so that education is then inculcated amongst amongst all the citizens in Zimbabwe. And I know as youth we are heavy users of technology, heavy users of, for example, your social media. How can we as youth use social media so that at the end of the day we also push for the comprehensive protection of our environment? What I have given is not exhaustive, but just try to paint the picture on what efforts that the youth in Zimbabwe and the youth globally can jointly do to push for comprehensive protection of the environment and the recognition of ecocide law ultimately. So back to.
Thank you so much, Ignatius, for the presentation, especially highlighting the environmental crimes that are here in Zimbabwe, and how as the youths we can also jump in and try to advocate for ecocide law. So at the moment, I will leave it for questions, comments, contributions. Okay. So I hope silence means people are understanding. So moving forward, I will now invite Jileme to the floor so that he also speaks to us from an international and African perspectives when it comes to ecocide law, and maybe giving us some case studies, especially from DRC, where they have pushed for ecocide law, especially through the parliament and all. So, Jileme, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, dear moderator, and thank you to all the participants for their time, for joining this important webinar. I will not open my camera just to maximize the internet quality. And let me start by joining my voice to the previous speakers to wish you a happy Earth Day. It's an honor to contribute to this webinar. I would like to begin with a simple but urgent statement. In the Democratic Republic of Congo, environmental destruction is not just an ecological issue. It is a human rights crisis. The Democratic Republic of Congo is home to one of the most important ecosystems on Earth, the Congo Basin forests, as we may know, often described as the lungs of Africa. It is also the country rich in natural resources, including critical minerals such as cobalt and coltan, which are essential to the global energy transition. And yet, this natural wealth has become a paradox. Instead of driving sustainable development, it has too often fueled environmental degradation, social injustice, and conflicts. Across different regions of the country, we observe widespread deforestation, illegal and unregulated mining, and severe pollution of water systems. These environmental harms are not abstract. They directly affect communities, contaminating drinking water, destroying livelihoods, and endangering public health. In many cases, these damages occur with little or no accountability. This brings us to one of the central challenges: the limitation of existing legal frameworks. While the environmental law do exist in the DRC, their enforcement remains weak. Structural issues such as governance gaps, lack of resources, and sometimes corruptions make it difficult to hold perpetrators accountable. As a result, large-scale environmental destruction often goes unpunished. It is within this context that the concept of ecocide becomes particularly relevant. Ecocide refers to severe and either widespread or long-term damage to the environment. Increasingly, there is a global movement advocating for its recognition as an international crime, alongside genocides, crimes against humanity, war crime, and aggression. Institutions such as the International Criminal Courts are being considered as potential platforms where such a crime could be prosecuted if formally adopted. While organizations like Stop Ecocide International continue to build legal momentum and political support. In the Democratic Republic of Congo and across Africa, this conversation is no longer theoretical. We are witnessing tangible progress. In Congo, for example, an ecocide bill to make it the criminalization of ecocides practice is currently under review in the Senate. In Ghana, parliamentary debates have begun on integrating ecocide into the constitution. In Zimbabwe, our host for today, a petition has been submitted to parliament to advance its recognition. At the continental level, the issue is gaining political traction, with ecocide emerging as a priority within the African Ministerial Conference on the Environment, while globally, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, has recognized ecocide within its environmental governance discussion. While these efforts remains at different stages, they signals a clear shift from silence to engagement, and from engagement to potential legal transformation. From the perspective of the DRC, the recognition of ecocide could represent a transformative shift. It would help fill a critical legal gap by addressing forms of environmental destruction that are currently inadequately covered by national and international law. More importantly, it will send a strong signal that large-scale environmental harm is not just unfortunate, it is unacceptable and unpunishable. However, global legal recognition alone is not enough. One of the key lessons from the DRC is that local realities must shape the global frameworks. Another important lesson is that central role of civil society Another important lesson is the central role of civil society and local advocacy. In the DRC, progress on environmental issues, including discussions around ecocides, has largely been driven by grassroots movements, NGOs, and committed individuals. These actors plays a critical role in raising awareness, documenting environmental harm, and pushing for legal and policy reforms. Their work reminds us that change often starts from the ground up. At the same time, meaningful progress requires multiple level collaboration between local actors, national governments, regional institutions, and international bodies. No single actor can address these challenges alone. Finally, there is also a need to shift the narrative. Environmental protection is sometimes framed as a secondary concern, something that can be postponed in factor of economic growth. But the reality we see in the Democratic Republic of Congo clearly shows that environmental destruction undermines development itself. It destroys economies, destabilizes societies, and threatens lives. We must therefore move from a narrative of protecting nature to one of protecting life, dignity, and future generations. In conclusion, what is happening in the Democratic Republic of Congo is not an isolated situation. It is a reflection of a broader global challenge. Recognizing ecocides as an international crime could be a powerful step towards accountability, but it must go hand in hand with stronger national frameworks, inclusive governance, and sustained support for local communities. Environmental justice is not optional. It is not distant. It's not a distant goal. It's an urgent necessity. Thank you so much for your attention. I'm very open for questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chileme, for such a comprehensive presentation, for giving us a picture in terms of the milestones that African countries and internationally we have gone so far in terms of adopting Ecocide Law and in terms of advocating for it. And I like that you highlighted something important, that is environmental crimes are not just crimes, but they are also a human rights violation. Thank you so much for that, Chileme, and thank you so much for the presentation. So if anyone has a question or reflection, this is your time. You can write in the chat box any questions or reflections before we move forward. Okay, so those with questions and reflections, at the meantime, maybe you might write them in the chat box as we go ahead with our program. So now we have, I'm sure we now understand what Ecocide Law is all about. We now understand how the youths can also be part of the movement and can also influence policies in terms of environment, and to now have a clear picture on how Ecocide Law is being moved or is being influenced, especially in governments, in parliaments, and all. So what I understand is most of the people who do not want this Ecocide Law to be passed as a fifth crime, international crime, are mostly those from the private sector, the industry guys, the mine companies, and all. So now it's time for us maybe to understand how, as youths, we can approach these private players, these private sectors, in a way that they know that no, Ecocide is not against them. They can also be part and parcel of the movement, and we can coexist in terms of us as the environmental advocates and them as the private sector. So I will introduce Chiedza right now to the floor so that she unpacks maybe the strategies and how as youths we can engage these private sector players. So Chiedza, the floor is yours now.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending which part of the world you're joining us from. And yes, thank you so much to Youth for Ecocide Law and Earth Coexistence Initiative for organizing this very critical discussion. And I'd like to start by giving a background to Zimbabwe and some of the advances that have been happening in the sustainability space. So when you look at Zimbabwe as a country, when you look at our environmental legislation, it's actually quite advanced. Like when you look at Section 73 of our constitution in Zimbabwe, it guarantees every person the right to an environment that is not harmful to their health or well-being, and the right to have the environment protected for the future generations, and the right includes promoting conservation. And at a national level, when you look at sectors such as the agriculture sector, we have Fumfudza. So at a national level, we've been promoting regenerative agricultural practices, preventing pollution and ensuring ecologically sustainable development. And you see this carrying over in our national development strategy too. So at a legislative level, we're actually quite advanced. Then when you look at COP27, our Ministry of Finance and Investment Promotion, we are actually one of the first countries to adopt ISSB, which is the International Sustainability Standards Board, at a national level back in in Egypt at COP27. So there is a lot of frameworks that actually look to support strong environmental stewardship. So from the private sector, we have been seeing our public sector engaging with private sector and trying to hold companies more accountable. We have instruments such as SI 136 of 2019, which mandates all publicly listed companies to adopt sound ESG reporting practices. So you can see, again, that is an attempt to hold companies accountable for the impact that their operations will have on the environment. Now, normally when you think of regulations and legislation, most people often think that private sector are against regulations. But when you dig beneath the surface, we need strong regulations. And with the increase in sustainability and ESG reporting, you're seeing that there is an appetite from private sector to start looking at business operations more holistically. Zimbabwe adopting that is an indicator, but you're also seeing other companies that are not publicly listed voluntarily adopting and developing sustainability strategies. You're also starting to see more directors taking an interest in their duties as a director to look at the performance of a company beyond financial returns. So we have been seeing an increasing trend of companies wanting to understand their climate risks. And post UNCBD COP15, where we had the Kunming Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework, we are seeing frameworks such as the Task Force for Nature-Related Financial Disclosure starting to bring the impact of a business's operations to the forefront, more linked to their nature risks and dependencies. Because when you look at the global economy, most of the economy is dependent on nature. And for a lot of us in Africa and for Zimbabwe, agriculture is the backbone of our economy. So we need intact ecosystems. We need ecosystems such as wetlands to regulate the hydrological cycle. We need we need our pollinators to be able to pollinate and ensure we have food security. Food security is national security. So when you look at Ecocide Law, perhaps it's an opportunity now to strengthen existing frameworks and legislation that we have in place, but to also help inform and start a discussion that as we push for stronger legislation and regulation, can we also simultaneously make more aware the opportunities that actually come with stronger legislation. So with stronger legislation, some of the things that it does help businesses do is to, number one, be more aware and start the discussion at a higher level of what is our impact of our business operations on people and planet versus just focusing on a financial bottom line. Then with that comes the opportunities. Sustainability, we're seeing a trend where sustainability is moving beyond just being about ticking some boxes and a little bit of corporate social responsibility to looking at sustainability more holistically, that how can we make our business more efficient, more resource efficiency such as, being looking at your water efficiency, looking at, your fertilizer application, looking at your business processes can actually have a positive impact on business and make business more productive, more profitable, and also ensure long-term resilience. And we've seen that in Zimbabwe. So when we look at Ecocide Law and you look at ESG reporting, one thing that could possibly be a positive outcome from having stronger legislation and accountability is having more businesses being in a position to be able to manage their risks. When you talk about investment is all about risk management. It's about, looking at financial risk, looking at foreign exchange risk, looking at country risk, looking at nature risk, climate risk, social risk. And when you are managing your environmental risks, as Guillaume, our former speaker, said, wherever ecocide is happening, there's a violation of human rights. So there's a strong correlation between environmental and social when you look at ESG reporting. So if we can frame this and present it to businesses as this is an opportunity to assess your business more holistically, put nature on the balance sheets, and help directors and company owners to make more strategic long-term decisions where we are able to then ensure the long-term viability for that business as well. And from a private sector and businesses have the opportunity to be thinking in generations if it's a family businesses. They think more long-term, 10 years, 15, 20-year cycles. So Ecocide Law and the adoption of Ecocide Law actually helps private sector businesses manage and mitigate some of their nature risks, which actually has a positive impact that it actually can help in making certain businesses more investable, more bankable by having a greater, more holistic picture. And we are seeing indicators from the private sector in Zimbabwe, such as at the Construction Industry Federation of Zimbabwe's annual Congress. It was private sector that was saying, maybe it's time for us to update our bylaws. How can we ensure that we develop, but when we develop, we are developing with certain considerations such as, what is the impact, can we strengthen our environmental impact assessments? Some of the science that certain decisions was being made on is now defunct. So we are seeing an interest in also understanding more of the interactions between infrastructure and nature. Then when you look at, recently we had our public auditors and accounting body, they had their 10-year gathering of accountants who have historically focused on looking at just the financial returns and measuring the financial returns of a company. And at a national level, we're having a discussion where accountants are now also probing and pushing businesses to look at climate risk, to look at nature risk, to bring nature onto the balance sheet. So I think Zimbabwe as a country, yes, private sector can be seen to be avert to regulation and legislation, but regulation and legislation can create an even playing field and as well as make businesses more competitive. And with that, we can also start to unpack what are the opportunities. And we have seen in countries where they haven't adopted Ecocide Law, but they've started looking at bringing nature into the balance sheets and be able to leverage off of it. When you look at there's countries like Colombia where their coffee now fetches a premium because they can certify that their coffee migratory bird species. So we can also look at ecocide law as an opportunity to actually drive economic development, to drive macroeconomic stability. And this is the beauty of young people, that we have youth in policy making, we have youth in certain industries, we have youth in civil society, we have youth across every sector, every sphere of Zimbabwe. And this is where, yes, we're having our webinar today, but as young people, we are able to disseminate information at an accelerated rate and really drive movements, really amplify the sharing of information and knowledge, and help our counterparts and peers not just concentrated in the urban areas, but also in the rural areas, so that we raise the awareness, we raise people's understanding of the rights that sometimes people are not aware they have, and also look and see that as this global discussion is happening, how can we position ourselves as Zimbabwe? How can we leverage off of it? And how can we ensure that initiatives and movements such as Ecocide Law can actually enhance and catapult some of our national development strategies and ambitions? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Chieta, for the presentation, for the insights on how we can collaborate with the private sector, how we can engage the private sector in terms of Ecocide Law, in terms of ESG and all. Thank you so much for the presentation. So maybe it's time for reflections, time for questions. If we have questions, if we have reflections, even the speakers, you can ask questions, you can reflect as well. So I'll leave the floor to questions and reflections if we have those. Yeah, okay. So the question is in the chat. So Showers is saying, it seems I don't have access to the mic. Okay, thank you to the organizers for this timely discussion. At Kalonji, I'm working on an LLM exploring legal pathways for criminalizing ecocide in Africa, and DRC is one of my case studies. Firstly, it's striking how your country has some of the strongest environmental law provisions. Enforcement is your major downfall. However, I am therefore curious to hear how the proposed law bridges enforcement gap. For example, if a mining company with a valid license causes mass environmental destruction, does the bill include provisions to hold the state complicit? That's a question for Guilherme from Showers. So over to you, Guilherme.
Thank you so much for that amazing question. I think in that question is one of the most asked in the context of DRC. Even our friends, Congolese people inside the community are asking the same question, because in the past years, population have been starting to feel like distractions coming from the mining, for example, was now legal. It was now normal. People have been accepting because they were not finding another choice, another way to do things. But now, thanks to the implication of authorities such as the president himself, nationally and internationally, we are seeing the change is starting to happen. It started by the president himself, then the member of the government, then the MPs, and actually we have 4 groups of people advocating strongly for the criminalization of ecocide nationally and internationally. That means alongside the presidency, the governments, and the deputies, there is civil society. then I think that is becoming the major force for things to change effectively. Those who are giving license to economic people, to the business people, are the ones who are now advocating for the criminalization of ecocide. I think it's the process that is going on very well, and in the few years, starting by the end of this year, with the results of the ecocide bill in the parliament, we will start seeing the big change. We know that in the past we had other governments, other presidents, but now we have another system that is leading, and it's this system that is engaging the country and Africa in the way of criminalizing ecocide. I think there is a lot of reason now to start having hope that things are changing. Economic sites in Congo will no longer be the source of environmental crime in our country. And I encourage you, if you are in Congo or if you are not in Congo, to join us as we are advocating for the criminalization of ecocide. Thank you.
For the response. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Shawaz, for such an important question. I don't know if we have any other questions before moving forward. Okay, there's also a question.
Hello, Tapadwa. Hello.
Okay, yes, Ignatius, you can come in.
Yes. So mine is a question directed to the guys that have been leading in terms of recognition for ecocide law within their respective countries. I would love them to share with us in terms of what have been the most effective advocacy strategies that they have used. That is the first question. And then also, how have the youths within their different countries come to the party in terms of then leading in pushing for the advocacy for recognition of ecocide law, and also in terms of lobbying the parliamentarians, the policymakers, for them to then ultimately have that ultimate buy-in that led to the different reforms and to the different initiatives that relate to the recognition of ecocide law within their countries.
Okay, I think Ignatius is having some network challenges. But I think from the questions that he has raised, maybe the speakers, you have managed to get something from what he was saying, so you can respond to that. So maybe Nicole and Chilem, you might respond to some of the questions, especially the methods that you have used in terms of advocating for ecocide law in your countries and internationally.
Thank you so much. So that is also a very important question, I can say, because African countries are not the same at all when it comes to the political system and the local situations. And the major advice that I can give according to that question is that when you are trying to engage your country or another country to ask for the criminalization of ecocide, you need to focus on the local situation. When you focus in the local situation, local communities will welcome you, will welcome your thematic. But when you just come with examples from other country, they will feel like you are trying to colonize them. They feel like you are trying to bring them something new. But when you pass through local situation, they welcome you very well, and they will even support what you are doing. I think that is what motivated Congolese leaders to engage effectively to this campaign. Let me be very clear. For example, in the big parts of Eastern Congo, there is so many protected areas rich in biodiversity. But in that same area, armed conflicts have been going on since 30 years. Where there is armed conflict, security conflict, it's impossible for communities to protect the biodiversity. It's impossible for scientists to do their research. It's impossible for the protected areas to be safe. That means during the security conflict, the arms group conflict, there is a lot of biodiversity loss. Then that was the biggest motivation that leads our authorities and our communities to be convinced that advocating for the criminalization of ecocides was and is something very important, not only for our country, Congo, but for the African region, the African continent, and for all the planets.
Thank you so much, Clem. I don't know if Nicola, you have something to add on this before we move forward.
Yeah, I would like to add on this comment that we have received from Josephine regarding the international dimension, and notably, besides the calls by states, which I mentioned earlier, Vanuatu, Fiji, Samoa, the DRC, they call for the recognition of individuals accountable for massive ecological harm that threatens human life. So, in general, I would say there has not been any direct link between ecocide and the human rights at legal international level. The only thing that comes to my mind is when the UN General Assembly has recognized the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment as a human right in 2022. So, although there is no direct link, there is still an indirect link between environmental harm and the protection of human rights. But again, there is still much that needs to be done with regards to the recognition of ecocide as a provision that also carries some level of protection directly for human rights, human life. And at the same time, I believe it's also important to give a bit more of a holistic view to the concept of ecocide. So, of course, it's very important to keep human rights in mind, but there is, in general, the life of all sentient beings, of the wide web of life, as someone called, to be respected and protected also at the legal level. Of course, human rights can be a very interesting tool of legal action to incorporate ecocide within the international system. We know that the human rights complex regime is pretty much developed at the international level, especially within the UN Charter. So it is very important to make a connection between ecocide and human rights. And probably once the ICC will recognize ecocide as a fifth crime under the International Criminal Court, the court will also shed light on how this concept relates to the other four crimes currently proposed and adopted within the Rome Statute, which are all about human rights. So genocide, aggression, war crimes, crimes against humanity. These are all provisions that are about human rights, and therefore ecocide will also likely have a human rights component to it once it's adopted by the ICC. I hope this clarifies your concern and your question.
Uh, Thank you, Nicole, for answering Josephine's question. There's also a question, Kudzanai Chiveru, and I'm sure this is for Ignatius, but other speakers, you can also jump in. So Kudzanai is asking that, what role can youth field researchers play in documenting community level ecocide evidence? And are these standards and are there standards we should follow now to ensure it's usable later? So maybe this is for Ignatius and other speakers. You can also hop in. Ignatius.
Yeah, thank you very much, Father. And if I got you well, the question relates to what kind of research can youth do, and what are the standards that guide the research? Correct me if I'm wrong, but if that is the question, so one thing that I think the youth should understand is the fact that when we are talking about ecocide, we are talking about something that is two important components. We have something to do with your science. Then we have the other component that specifically focuses on laws and policies. So in terms of the research, your research has to be grounded in scientific, legal, and policy evidence. So those are the three major components. And in terms of the standards that are expected in terms of coming up with the research, so the standards now do not change because you are specifically researching in relation to ecocide or ecocide law. So whatever standards that are widely recognized in terms of coming up with a credible evidence base that is then managed to inform or drive legal and policy reforms. We also expect that same of evidence and that same of research to be done, and those same standards to be followed when it comes to coming up with a credible evidence base that will push for the recognition for ecocide law and ecocide policy. And remember that when we are talking about ecocide, your evidence base should be comprehensive enough to the extent that it pushes ultimately for that science-driven legal and policy reform. Because at the end of the day, when we are talking about ecocide, we are not just talking about the environment. We are not just talking about the law, but what are the scientific aspects in terms of in terms of the research? What are the social aspects? What are the environmental aspects? What are the technological legal? So it goes down to maybe your pastel. What are the political issues? What are the environmental, social, technological, ecological, and then the legal issues? So we then expect your research to incorporate all these important aspects so that at the end of the day, the research is comprehensive and then it is convincing enough to then push for the much needed legal and policy reforms. Thank you and back to you.
Okay, thank you, Ignatius. I see Chida is up. We can come in.
Yep. So I'd also like to add that I think we're also now seeing that when it comes to environmental issues, it's no longer just being kept in silo within the conservationists and Ministry of Environment, Climate and Wildlife. Climate and biodiversity issues cut across every sector of the economy. So even if you're not a lawyer, as a researcher or as a scientist, I think as young people, there's a massive opportunity in closing a lot of our natural capital accounting and pursuing paths such as Earth observation, drone operating, closing that data gap, which can allow for a greater level of accountability. So that's another opportunity of where young people can get involved, because without that critical data, it's very difficult to then hold any institutions accountable for any environmental degradation. So the environmental space, I think maybe we weren't really encouraged to pursue careers. For us, it was doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse. But the environmental arena, I think we are going to be seeing a massive growth in data as a business. So I'd just like to add to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chieza, for such an insight. Thank you so much, everyone, for the questions, for the contributions, and to the speakers for responding to the questions. Now I'm giving this time to colleagues from Youth for Ecocide Law to give us closing remarks. So over to you, Youth for Ecocide Law.
Thank you, Tafadzwa, and thanks for all the contributions. It was great to hear so many young people talking in Zimbabwe. Sorry. It was great to hear so many wonderful contributions from the youth civil society of Zimbabwe, and in particular to learn more about the key environmental challenges that are being faced in Zimbabwe and how young people are tackling them, and also to learn more about the specific context of Zimbabwe and to match it with international experiences and lessons, for instance, from the DRC with the contributions by Guillaume. So thank you so much also for making this link. It's very much relevant to bring different perspectives at the regional level in order to learn from each other and also to build and grow the network of youth advocates across Africa. So it was also great to hear from Ignatius about youth leadership in advocacy with a particular focus on ecocide and environmental action, and also from Chieza to learn more about the engagement of the private sector for the recognition of ecocide and for advancing environmental action. So thank you so much to everyone for your contributions. It was a great learning session, and I hope the conversation will not stop here. I hope you will keep on contributing to grow the network of Ecocide Law advocacy in your country, and that you will join Youth for Ecocide Law and Earth Coexistence Initiative in pushing forward for stronger environmental action. I sent the link to our social media handles and our newsletter in the chat. So feel free to join and to connect with us, to send us an email. We are very much available and willing to engage in discussions with any one of you. So thanks for staying with us, and I hand back to Tafadzwa.
Thank you so much, Nicole, for the closing remarks. To all speakers as well, thank you so much, and thank you so much to participants who joined this webinar today. It means a lot to us as ECI and as Youth for Ecocide Law. Just to encourage each other, I would say let's continue having this conversation beyond today, and let it not be a conversation only, but let it be action-oriented. Let us up our games in terms of advocacy and collaboration to advance Ecocide Law. And once again, I would say to you, happy International Mother Earth Day, and have a very wonderful day ahead. Thank you, everyone, for joining.